Hi YouTube. Again, I'm in the workshop, and it's always bad news that I'm in the workshop, right? So, anyways, going back to my Airtrek, this is the latest update. Airtrek problems. I was driving in Sungai Long last weekend, and I realized that my gearbox was starting to grind upon takeoff from traffic light, from standstill, as well as reverse from standstill. There was this very nasty grinding sound, gears grinding, not engaging each other. So I initially thought it was the transfer case that was slipping, and I was lucky to make it home. The very next day I drove it to the workshop. So now my car is in pieces. Let me show you. Anyway, here you go. Let's cut to the chase. That's actually my engine. That's the head, my valves, new gasket, pistons. My car is hanging in the air. No engine. Transfer case in pieces. Again, no engine. My car, no engine. Everything's removed. My subframe, Evo subframe, everything's brand new. And that's my gearbox right there. Valve body, gearbox pump, oil pump. From having a slipping gearbox to having a complete top overhaul on my engine. Cars hanging in the air, replacing a lot of parts. Long shaft bushes, all the couplings, all the oil seals in my transfer case, and then replacing oil in there as well. Previously there was LSD oil in there, works fine, no issues there, but just to be safe I will put in something that's recommended by a friend of mine, which is Red Line lightweight shockproof gear oil, blue color label. Gearbox, I bought a new gearbox, a used gearbox from a half cut shop. I'll show you, it's in the front. Yeah, cars in pieces. That's my intake manifold, my head, and my old gasket, which is less than 1 mm thick. It's 0.75 mm thick. I think it's been used many times, and this has made my head very hot, the engine very hot. I've got a complete top overhaul set here. Might as well do it since it's all in pieces anyway. Condition of the engine is okay. I've got the piston bore size is actually oversized now due to wear by 0.2 mm on all four pistons. That means I'm experiencing a lot of blow-by. I need to upgrade my oil catch can. Yeah, more bits and pieces of my Airtrek, and this is a quick update on what we're doing. All my parts are actually quite new. It's actually a new fan, at least the fan motor is new. You know, it feels like I did this not too long ago, about a year plus ago, and then I'm doing this again now. Non-stop, man, non-stop. But it'll come back stronger, I guess. This is it. This is my car. It's in pieces. Oh my goodness. I think it's a good time to clean up the engine bay as well. Let's see what we can do. Here's the used gearbox that I just picked up. Heavy as hell, super duper heavy. I don't know why this gearbox is so heavy, but anyways, this is what's going in back to replace my broken gearbox. Because of a gearbox, I'm doing a top overhaul of my engine and doing so much other repair maintenance jobs. Oh my goodness, killing me. How's it going, YouTube? Alright, just wanted to give you an update on this Airtrek of mine. I think the last video you saw of it is that gearbox was in pieces, everything was in pieces, engine was down, and we're doing a top overhaul. At the same time, the reason why it was in the workshop and why I had an opportunity to do a top overhaul is because I thought the gearbox was on its way out. But lo and behold, it was not. Gearbox is actually fine. You know, everybody in the Airtrek community always says that, hey, one day this gearbox gonna give way. It doesn't hold up to a lot of power, and it's fragile. You know, blah 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 blah. But it's not true. To be honest with you, my car, I've owned it for over a year now, maybe 2 years, I can't remember. But I got it in the start of the pandemic. Originally, after the first refurbishment process, the gearbox, to be honest, gearbox oil was short. There wasn't a lot of gearbox oil in the gearbox. It was a little bit low on gearbox oil, and partly I'm to blame, but partly the workshop also to be blamed. I didn't check my gearbox oil when I should have, which I normally always do on all my other cars. But on this car, I just didn't bother because, yeah, gearboxes are cheap, but that's just being very blatant, and it's my fault. This gearbox was running low on gearbox oil, and I was using it for almost 20,000 kilometers. Every time I would check the dipstick when the engine is on and the gearbox is hot, there will be zero oil on the dipstick, and I have asked the workshop to double check my finding before, and I think maybe through the haste and the rush of doing things, they also forget to check it. So in and out oil service, never really check gearbox oil because it's been replaced, and finally when it's due for an oil gearbox oil replacement, again we check the dipstick and it's zero gearbox oil in the gearbox. Not zero, well there is, but in the dipstick it shows no oil indicator on the dipstick, and it's been running like that for 20,000 kilometers. The problem that arises with running so little gearbox oil is that when I do make a U-turn and I throttle it, maybe 50 to 70% throttle, the kick down from second to first gear or third to second gear comes in a big bang, and the car just leaps forward, almost literally jumps off the road, bam, and it goes. And that has been a problem from day one of me owning the car. I thought that it was a gearbox problem, but actual fact, it's just low on gearbox oil. Mitsubishi Diaquin gearbox oil is what we normally fill in this thing. It's been working fine all the way until recently. About 4 weeks ago, I went for a mountain bike ride in Sungai Long, and I noticed that I'm having a slight grind, gear grinding sound, and that sound translates into vibration, and that vibration is felt on my floorboard. So my first suspicion is that my CV joint, my CV shaft, drive shaft is popping out of my gearbox, which is what I felt was truly the problem, not my transfer case or my gearbox giving way. So anyway, I limped back to the workshop after a day of riding and told the workshop to get it done correctly, check the CV joint. They did all the check, did the due diligence. They hoisted the car up in the hoist, checked the CV joint and all that, and couldn't find that it was popping out the gearbox. Couldn't find that anything was wrong. Couldn't find that it was loose. Long story short, engine came down. Then that's why it led to me doing a top overhaul, and transfer case was dismantled. Gearbox was fully dismantled. We found there were some shavings in the gearbox. The gearbox was a little bit damaged. Um, there was a little bit of wear or scuff marks on the clutches of the gearbox, and one broken solenoid or something like that. And but having said that, I never had any issues with my gearbox. It shifted fine from first to fifth in manual as well as in auto mode. Um, anyway, long story short, that was the findings when we dismantled the gearbox, and I had to go and buy a used one. I went and bought a used gearbox very cheaply. Luckily, I was helped out by Suki. Thanks, Suki. He runs a fantastic Airtrek half-cut shop and has all the parts you need for Airtreks. And he helped me out with giving me a very good deal on a gearbox, a low mileage, 100,000 kilometer gearbox. Put it in, that gearbox worked fine. Not to say that my gearbox was not working fine. This gearbox and my gearbox was working fine, but the problem still persists. The issue was really my CV joint popping out from the gearbox, because the capture ring that is at the tip of the CV joint, the input shaft, is already very worn, and it tends to pop out. Especially when you make turns or when you go through uneven roads, and it only hates itself when you are actually rolling out of a traffic light stop, forward and reverse gears. So anyway, long story short, did a whole bunch of other regular maintenance job work on the car, replacing certain bushings, longshaft, bearings, and a whole lot of stuff. Spent another 4,800 ringgit on labor and parts, only to find that the problem still persists. And the problem was my initial finding, which is the input shaft into the gearbox popping out. Well, with that sorted, the car now drives great. I used to have engine knock between 4,000 to 5,000 RPM because I suspect that my head gasket is very thin. Compression on the engine was probably very high, and I bought the car like that. I never opened the engine before, and I waited for an opportunity like this to open the engine and replace the head gasket. So luckily, with the top overhaul, we grind the valves, replace valve seals, and replace a brand new head gasket, 1.5 mm Mitsubishi original head gasket, 1.5 mm thick. That resolved my knocking problem. That means now I can retune my car and further advance timing and increase my boost and have no issues of knocking. Why was my engine knocking? It was because my head gasket that was on this engine originally came with the car is actually 0.7 mm thick. It's been used over and over again. I don't know why the previous owner would have cheaped out on it. Thanks, previous owner, you're a real sucker. 0.7 mm thick, that is what the thickness was on the overused head gasket, and that is why my engine was knocking. Now I've resolved all the small minor issues, which really nagged me in my heart in this car. I'm so happy with it. I can even boost 1.4 bar now. It's super powerful, much more powerful than it was before. There are no boost leaks, turbo is running great, power is good, no more knock, and the car is running solid. There's no vibrations, no noises, no knocking sound. Everything is smooth and nice. Bar the paint job is shit. I need to get it painted, but that's the last thing. Okay, that's to conclude this Airtrek job. I didn't want to do this video because it's like calling people out and putting my mechanic, who's been very good to me, on the spot. He had replaced the transfer case here on this car for me free. He's done a lot of good things for me, so I'm not gonna knock him. It's just one of those things that, you know, Um, you can't fault a person for trying. But anyways, we live and learn. We spend the money, get things done better. Car feels great. Results are there. Um, then yeah, I'll probably end this video here, but I've got one more update that I want to share with you guys, and the update is in the workshop. I will go into the workshop and show you what is new. Stay with me. Oh, just to update here as well, stiff ring works very good. I've not had to adjust or do an alignment even after having the whole subframe and engine out. Reinstalled the subframe, have not done an alignment. Car's track straight, no pulling, steering is straight, everything is nice. Alignment and camber didn't run. I'm so surprised. So this is my car. It's tatty, rough on the outside, but everything works, everything's solid, drives really well. The update today is that, ta-da! I bought myself another Mitsubishi Airtrek Turbo R.